This video is on Tax Audit Report in Form 3CA 3CD. A tax audit in Form 3CA 3CD involves an expression of tax auditor's opinion on the truth and correctness of certain factual details furnished by a taxpayer to the income tax authorities to enable correct assessment of total income considering all allowances, deductions, losses, adjustments, exemptions, etc., and determination of tax thereon. As per the provisions of Section 44AB of the Income Tax Act, tax audit is applicable where sales, turnover or gross receipts of business of the taxpayer exceed Rs 1 crore and in case of a taxpayer carrying on profession if the gross receipts exceed Rs 50 lakhs in a financial year. As per Finance Act 2021, with effect from 1st April 2021, the threshold limit for applicability of tax audit is increased to Rs 10 crores in case cash transactions do not exceed 5% of the total transactions. Tax audit is also applicable to taxpayers in certain other circumstances as per the provisions of the Act, for example, taxpayers eligible for presumptive taxation but claiming lower income. Rule 6G prescribes the manner of reporting and furnishing of the tax audit report. There are two types of forms, Form 3CA 3CD and Form 3CB 3CD. Form 3CA CD is prescribed for a person who, in addition to the Income Tax Act, is required under any other law to have their accounts audited. Form 3CB 3CD is prescribed for a person who is required to get its accounts audited only under the Income Tax Act. This video covers the process of filing Form 3CA 3CD. Form 3CA 3CD is required to be uploaded by a chartered accountant and accepted and submitted by a taxpayer on the e-filing portal. Let us first check the prerequisites for filing the form on the portal. The taxpayer and chartered accountant are required to be registered on the e-filing portal with a valid username and password. The taxpayer should have active digital signature certificate or e-verification facility, and the taxpayer must have assigned the chartered accountant for Form 3CA 3CD. The chartered accountant should have active digital signature certificate. Form 3CA 3CD has two sections, Form 3CA and Form 3CD. The first page lets you navigate to Form 3CA and Form 3CD. Form 3CA is the audit form filled by the chartered accountant for details of the taxpayer being audited. The chartered accountant has to first fill the details in Form 3CA to proceed further to fill Form 3CD. In Form 3CD, the chartered accountant enters the particulars required to be furnished under Section 44AB of the Income Tax Act. Let us first look at the latest changes in Form 3CD. A new section, Section 44BC, has been added in Clause 12, which requires disclosure of presumptive taxation under Sections 44AD, 44ADA, 44BB, and now Section 44BC. Some of the sections like Section 32AC, 32AD, 35AC, 35CCB have either expired or become redundant, and therefore the auditors are no longer required to report deductions claimed under these sections. Clause 19 containing these inoperative sections has been now omitted. Clause 21 now requires reporting of settlements under notified laws. A new row has been inserted to report expenditure incurred to compound an offence under any law in India or outside India. Clause 22 has been fully substituted to focus on the MSME Act compliance. Therefore, the auditors are now required to give mandatory disclosures of amount payable beyond due date to the MSMEs under Section 15. Clause 26, there are certain changes in language and structure. Some of the words like allowed is replaced with allowable, emphasizing that the auditor is required to report what should be allowed and not just what is claimed. Clause 28 and 29 have been omitted with effect from assessment year 25-26. In Clause 31, drop-down based codes have been introduced for reporting loans and deposits in Form 3CD. Codes for nature of amount were previously visible when yes was selected in point 7. However, now new codes have been added specifically for the case when no is selected. In Clause 36B, new clause has been inserted to report buyback of shares. Here, the auditors are required to disclose the amount received on buyback of shares and the cost of acquisition of such shares. Let us now look at how do we access and submit Form 3CA, 3CD on the e-filing portal. In order to submit the form, the taxpayer has to first assign the form to the chartered accountant and thereafter accept the submitted form through the online mode. The chartered accountant is required to fill the form through the offline utility only. You may refer to the video on offline utility to learn more. Let us first check how the form is assigned by the taxpayer to the chartered accountant. The taxpayer is first required to log in to the e-filing portal using your valid user ID and password. On the dashboard, the taxpayer can click on e-file, go to income tax forms, and then click on File Income Tax Forms. On File Income Tax Forms page, the taxpayer can select Form 3CA, 3CD and then click on File Now. Alternatively, the taxpayer can enter Form 3CA, 3CD in the search box to file the form. The taxpayer is now required to select the filing type and assessment year and then assign the chartered accountant. The taxpayer can also attach any supporting documents and then click on Continue. On assignment of the form to the chartered accountant, a success message is displayed along with the transaction ID. The taxpayer is required to keep a note of the transaction ID for future reference. The form is now required to be filed by the chartered accountant. So the chartered accountant is required to log into the e-filing portal using its user ID and password. On the dashboard, the chartered accountant is required to click on Pending Actions, go to Work List, where a list of pending items is displayed. Under For Your Actions tab, the chartered accountant is required to accept the form which has been assigned by the taxpayer. On acceptance by the chartered accountant, a success message is displayed along with the transaction ID. The chartered accountant can keep a note of the transaction ID for future reference. Now again in the CA login, under the Pending for Filing tab, the CA can file the form against Form 3CA, 3CD. The CA can check the details of the taxpayer and then click on Continue to proceed. Here, the chartered accountant can download the offline utility, fill the form using the utility and create a JSON file. The chartered accountant is now required to upload the JSON file using the offline utility, attach necessary supporting documents and then click on Submit. The chartered accountant can now add the unique identification number and then click on Proceed. After successful e-verification, a success message of submission of form by chartered accountant is displayed along with the transaction ID. The chartered accountant can keep a note of the transaction ID for future reference. The form is now required to be accepted and verified by the taxpayer. The taxpayer will log in to the e-filing portal using its user ID and password. On the taxpayer's dashboard, the taxpayer will click on Pending Actions and go to Work List. On the taxpayer's work list, under the Pending for Acceptance, the taxpayer can click on Accept against the Form 3CA, 3CD which has been uploaded by the chartered accountant. The taxpayer can also view the form by clicking on View Form and then accept it. On accepting the request, the taxpayer will be taken to e-verify page where the taxpayer can verify using digital signature certificate or Aadhaar OTP. To know more on e-verification, you may refer to the video on how to e-verify. The taxpayer can take a note of the transaction ID and the acknowledgement receipt number for future reference. Also, the taxpayer will receive a confirmation message on your email ID and mobile number registered with the e-filing portal. In order to avoid errors in form filing and verification, kindly ensure to use the latest version of the utility for generating JSON. Kindly ensure that the PAN of the taxpayer, assessment year, CA membership number, form filing type are correctly entered in the utility and selected on the portal. Log in the DSC token. Profile and contact details are updated in taxpayer and CA login. Also, please check e-Mudra token drivers are updated. Filing of Form 3CA, 3CD is very easy. To know more, you may visit www.incometax.gov.in or contact our helpline numbers.